Welcome to SACScosplay's first how-to video. This video is going to go over how the Fire Nation costumes were made. So to start off, here's the materials you will need. You'll need lots of chicken wire, but I'm just going to use a sample. A good amount of 16 gauge wire. A tool that can cut and bend the wire. Duct tape, that's what we'll pretend this is. A lot of craft foam for the entire project. Maybe 12 sheets per costume, but I'm just going to use only 2 today. A Sharpie, a pair of scissors, a stapler, a bunch of cardstock paper, all the fabric and matching colors for the Fire Nation costumes, a sewing machine with thread to match your fabric. You'll also need about 2 to 3 yards of Velcro strips. Make sure you get much more than what is shown here. Thin carpet, a hot glue gun with glue sticks, a belt, and I always include bandages because I always get cut somehow in all cosplay processes. Chicken wire is the best to buy in bulk. A large roll is about $35. It'll last a very long time. The thin carpet can be found at Lowe's. It's $20 and supplied enough material for 4 Fire Nation guards. And the cardstock can be found at Walmart. These sheets are huge too, so you'll get a lot of use out of them. So the first thing we're going to replicate is the armor throughout the entire cosplay. The first thing you'll need to do here is cut the desired shape from the chicken wire. I'm going to make a square. After you cut that out, you'll notice the sharp edges are poking, well, from the edges. You will have to bend all the edges in so that they don't poke you when you're in costume. Once that's done, you will then need to trace the chicken wire cutout with craft foam. Try to leave around a ½ inch of wiggle room. Using your scissors, cut out what you traced. Repeat the tracing and cutting with a second piece of craft foam. These will be used to cover your chicken wire piece, make it less jabby, and make it appear a bit more thicker. Next, you will tape the craft foam around your chicken wire cutout. Remember, we want the tape to be duct tape. It's much sturdier than the masking tape I am using for an example. After that, grab your base color. Our base color will be this maroon. Trace your wrapped chicken wire, again leaving about a ½ inch of wiggle room. Cut out your tracing. Repeat this process with the same shape of the base color and 2 shapes of what you would like your trim color to be. Now, on your trim color, mark exactly where the edges of your wrapped chicken wire would be if it was centered in the middle of the fabric. Then mark how thick you would want your trim to be. The closer you mark towards the center, the thicker your trim will be. Cut out your tracing. For your other trim color, use the first trim color you use to trace the hole, so that you know they will be similar in size. Here's a little preview of what it looks like together, but not sewn. So now we've got to get sewing. The first thing you want to do is hem the inside hole with your trim color. It may be a little tricky, but it can be done by pulling the fabric where you need it to go. I'm going to use purple thread so that you guys can see where I sew. You should be using thread that matches your material. Once the inner trim is completed, the next step is to stitch your trim colors on the top of your base colors. Try to stay as close to the edge as possible. Believe it or not, my sewing machine was malfunctioning during the making of this tutorial. I think it just needs oil, which I currently don't have. I still used what capabilities it provided me to show you what to do. Because of this, however, I skipped the step, but I will draw it out. It is a good idea to stitch both the inner and outer edges of the trim to the base. I only did the outer to get the point across, but you can see in the example where I did not stitch the inner trim to the base. It lifts up. The ones I made for the Fire Nation do not lift up, and they look much smoother because of that. After that step, you would sandwich the 2 pieces you have left, making sure that the trim colors are on the inside. Then only stitch 3 edges. It is very important that it is just 3 edges. Once that is done, you will want to flip your piece inside out. You have basically made a pillowcase for the craft foam wrapped in chicken wire. Again, I skipped this next step because of the malfunctioning sewing machine, but you would then sew the final opening shut. That would be a completed piece of armor. What we did to attach your armor was use Velcro strips and hot glue. They can all be taken apart and put back together because of that. That method is what made the majority of each costume, including the shoulder, chest, abdomen, and back pads for both the guards and Azula. Azula even used this technique for her knee pads attached to her boots, and her flame hair piece as well. The rest of the piece, I believe, can be shown without walkthrough visuals, so I'm just going to talk through how we made the rest of the costume. The helmets will be our next item. The bases of all of our helmets are made out of the cardstock paper that I mentioned at the beginning. You can somewhat see on the inside. It's fabulous light. All that white. We had white cardstock paper at the time. I know I showed black earlier. The mask on the front are craft foam. It says black fabric on the outside, as you can see. If I fix the focus. It's all stitched alongside right there. There's 16 gauge wire. Yeah, it's at the end. It's kind of wrapped in duct tape, so it might be a little bit difficult to see. First, we basically made a cylinder out of the cardstock and used a stapler to keep it in place. And then we cut strips out of the cardstock, and we basically took them and just curve them over and tape them on the sides of the cylinder. That structure that we made out of the cardstock was then made sturdier with the duct tape and the 16 gauge wire. Next, the helmet was basically wrapped in this black fabric, and then what we did was we lined up. I'll even show you. What we did was we put these on. These holes didn't exist yet, so we basically just did this and then marked where we had to cut the holes. And then we basically just used these craft foam pieces, spray painted them, hot glued them on the helmet. You can also see it got beat up a little bit, but we also used the 16 gauge wire to give the craft foam a little bit more stiffness. So if I was to rip this off, this wire would travel all the way around to the other side, which you can see right there. So these are the folds. That's the inside I just showed you. This is what they look like on the outside, just like that. So basically the first thing we did was we used that thin carpet, which is what you see on the inside here. And we cut that to the size that everyone needed so it would fit around their waist. And then we wrapped it in this maroon. And then what we did was we just basically put this trim around the edge. And the next thing you would need is a belt. It would have to fit you, of course. Then we put this strip on the inside, and it's basically like a pocket or a long sheet. Just take the belt and put it through, and so that you can see the belt on either side. So basically, here's the belt. Put the belt on. It can't be more simple than that. And that's what it looks like. It won't go anywhere. It felt very nice and secure, and I value that very much when it comes to cosplay. These bracers were just, I'll just add in this shape here. They had this gray T-tail stitched onto them first. Basically just stitched along the edges where the dotted lines appear. The belts were just a strip of fabric. The buckle is a piece of craft foam. It's starting to crack a little bit. Time has been wearing out on it. If I can focus it, maybe you'll see it. There we go. We used more hot glue and Velcro. That's basically how they got put on. Drew it around my chest, but then we had the Velcro on this side. And that's just basically, but you know, down there. Zuko's robe was stitched up like any other sort of robe would be. His eye makeup was lipstick. The guards in Zuko's pants were store-bought. For the guards, we had this black stitch detail added onto it. The guards in Zuko's boots were actually just dress shoes, and we took black soccer socks and pulled them over. Zula's black and pink dress was basically just an old dress that used to have sleeves on it. We cut them off. They were like this ugly gray color. I just added the trim. That was a pain. Azula's undershirt was this like nice silky pajamas. We didn't do anything to alter them. They just looked perfect the way they were. Azula's belt was an old belt of mine actually, and it's just this. It used to look like that on the inside. It's one of those belts where it has the two buckles at the end. She would put the belt on inside out, and then once it was on, she'd flip it over so it looked like just one stripe. She used this. Got away from me. This is used with the chicken wire craft foam method. Once the belt was on, put it over where the buckle was, so it looked like this perfectly flat against physics belt. Azula's hair was a wig. Azula's boots were store-bought boots, and then this gold design hot glued onto them, and of course this knee pad thing. And that basically sums up the Fire Nation cosplay. We blasted through the making of these costumes in just 2 weeks. I did all the sewing except for Zuko. I helped with the helmets and the chicken wire wrapped in craft foam process. I was really exhausted. The average price was about $65 per person. We've only worn these costumes once at Anime Boston 2013, and that was before we were involved in any competitions. The important thing about any type of cosplay, especially ones that are made out of craft foam and spray painted, is that they need to be stored well. I left my helmet in the back of my car, and with all my friends climbing in my car all the time, just over time the helmet was just destroyed, and the craft foam, it does not hold up well unless you take care of it. And let's just say the mask was like ripped in half, and it looked awful. So if we were going to do these costumes again, we would definitely have to remake a lot of stuff. So that's our video. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram in the description below, and subscribe if you want to hear more. Thanks for watching.
Cosplay Society.